I'll create a complete 10,000-word story based on your outline and requirements. I'll present it in the chat directly with proper formatting for a voiceover script. My name is Miriam, and I am 32 years old. All my life I have lived in my younger brother's shadow. Every year my birthday passes with barely a whisper while my parents throw extravagant celebrations for Jackson. Years of being overlooked left invisible scars. Despite their neglect, I built a successful finance career on my own terms. This year, when they forgot my birthday, again, the substantial bonus sitting in my bank account gave me an idea. Before I tell you how I finally stood up for myself after decades of being forgotten, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button to join my journey of self-discovery. Growing up in our affluent Connecticut suburb, I was my parents' pride and joy for exactly 4 years. My father, David, worked as an investment banker, bringing home impressive bonuses and promotions that funded our spacious colonial house with its perfectly manicured lawn. My mother, Catherine, always impeccably dressed and composed, managed our home with the same precision my father applied to his financial portfolios. I have scattered memories of those early years when I was their only child. Weekends spent at the local park, where Dad would push me on the swings until my laughter echoed across the playground. Mom reading bedtime stories, doing all the character voices that made me giggle into my pillow. Birthday celebrations with homemade cakes and carefully wrapped presents. I remember feeling completely secure in their love. Then came the years of struggle. Mom and Dad trying for a second child. The whispered conversations I wasn't supposed to hear. The doctor appointments. Mom crying in the bathroom. Dad working later hours. The tension that filled our home like an invisible fog. When Mom finally got pregnant with Jackson, it was celebrated like a miracle. Neighbors brought gifts. Grandparents visited more frequently. Dad started coming home early. My parents' faces glowed with a happiness I hadn't seen in years. Jackson arrived 4 weeks early, tiny but perfect according to everyone who visited. From the moment they brought him home wrapped in a blue blanket my grandmother had knitted, something fundamental shifted in our family dynamic. He was the miracle baby, the son they thought they might never have the completion of our family. At first, the changes were subtle. When relatives visited, their attention naturally gravitated toward the new baby. When Jackson needed feeding or changing my requests for help with homework, or for someone to watch me ride my bike without training wheels, were met with, "In a minute, Miriam," that often stretched into hours. The first birthday that was overshadowed happened when I turned 8. My birthday fell on a Saturday that year, perfect for a celebration. I had requested a small party with my friends from school, nothing extravagant. Just cake games and maybe a trip to the local swimming pool. Mom had promised to send invitations. 2 weeks before my birthday, Jackson's baseball coach announced a special tournament on that same weekend. At 4 years old, Jackson was the youngest player on his t-ball team. Another fact my parents proudly shared with anyone who would listen. The tournament became the focus of all family discussions. "We will still celebrate your birthday, Miriam," Mom assured me while ordering special customized baseball caps for Jackson's team. Maybe the day before or after. The day before my birthday came and went with no mention of a celebration. My birthday morning arrived, and I woke up early, excitement bubbling despite my doubts. I came downstairs to find Mom frantically packing coolers with drinks and snacks. Dad was on the phone arranging carpools with other parents. "Oh, good morning, Miriam," Mom said, barely looking up. "Could you get Jackson's baseball bag from the laundry room and make sure his lucky socks are in there?" I stood in the kitchen doorway, still in my pajamas. "But today is my birthday." Dad covered the phone with his hand. "We know, sweetheart. We will do something special tomorrow, okay? Today is Jackson's big tournament, and we can't be late." The tournament ran late. Jackson's team made it to the finals, losing by just 1 point. My parents were so proud of how well he played that they took the whole team for ice cream afterward. We didn't arrive home until after my bedtime. There was no cake, no presents, no acknowledgement that the day had any significance for me. The next day, Mom handed me a hastily wrapped gift card to the bookstore and a store-bought cake still in the plastic container. Sorry we couldn't do more, honey. Jackson was so upset about losing yesterday that we had to cheer him up. That pattern continued and intensified as we grew older. My 16th birthday, a milestone most girls dream about, was completely forgotten amid preparations for Jackson's regional baseball championship. I came home from school hoping for at least a small family dinner to find the house empty, except for a note, "At Jackson's game. Leftovers in fridge. Back late." I spent my sweet 16 alone watching movies and trying not to cry into the microwaved lasagna. Meanwhile, Jackson's birthdays were legendary in our neighborhood. His 10th birthday featured a rented bounce house professional face painters and a magician. For his 16th, my parents bought him his first car, a brand new Jeep wrapped in an enormous bow that sat in our driveway while relatives and friends gathered for a surprise party that had been planned for months. It wasn't just birthdays. Every achievement I earned was acknowledged with distracted congratulations, while Jackson's accomplishments, no matter how minor, were celebrated extensively. When I made the honor roll consistently throughout high school, my parents nodded with the casual expectation of someone who assumes such achievements are the baseline. When Jackson got a B+ on a history test he had been struggling with, my parents took him out to his favorite restaurant and proudly displayed the test on the refrigerator for months. My artwork won regional contests, but my parents rarely attended the exhibitions. Jackson scored the winning goal at a regular season soccer game, and my parents created a highlight reel they shared with family members across the country. Whenever I tried to express my hurt at being overlooked, I was immediately shut down. "You are too sensitive, Miriam," my mother would say with a sigh. "It's not always about you," my father would add. "Jackson needs more support right now." The constant minimization of my feelings taught me to swallow my hurt. I stopped expecting acknowledgement. Instead, I channeled my energy into areas where I could earn recognition based on merit alone. Academics became my refuge, a world where effort correlated directly with results, where my achievements could not be overshadowed or diminished. I graduated as valedictorian of my high school, giving a speech my parents praised briefly before turning their attention to helping Jackson, then a freshman, navigate his class schedule for the following year. When college acceptances arrived, including offers from several Ivy League schools, my parents seemed surprised by my success. "We always knew you were smart," my father said, "but this is impressive." The real shock came when I asked about college finances. My parents had established a college fund when I was born, but it covered barely 1 year at the universities I was considering. "We had to reallocate some of those funds for Jackson's sports training camps," my mother explained. "They were expensive, but they are really going to help his chances for athletic scholarships. Besides," my father added, "you have always been so responsible with money. We know you will figure it out." In contrast, they had already promised Jackson they would cover his entire college education regardless of where he chose to attend. The inequality was stark, but by then I had stopped expecting anything different. So I did figure it out. I worked multiple jobs while taking a full course load. I applied for every scholarship available. I graduated with student loans, but far fewer than most of my classmates thanks to my relentless work ethic. And through it all, I watched from afar as my parents continued to pour resources and attention into Jackson's college experience, attending every home game and sending care packages weekly. I learned young that the only person I could truly depend on was myself. College became my first taste of real independence. I chose a school 1,200 miles away from home, far enough that weekend visits were impossible. Northwestern University offered me a partial academic scholarship, and I cobbled together the rest of my tuition through student loans, work-study positions, and weekend jobs waitressing at an upscale restaurant near campus. My parents called occasionally, usually to share news about Jackson or to ask if I was keeping my grades up to maintain my scholarship. They rarely inquired about my social life or whether I was enjoying my classes. Our conversations remained surface level, perfunctory check ins rather than meaningful exchanges. During my sophomore year, I took an introductory finance course that changed my trajectory. The professor, Eleanor Blackwell, was a former Wall Street executive who had left the high-pressure world of investment banking to teach. She noticed my aptitude for the material and my diligence in completing assignments that went beyond the basic requirements. After one particularly insightful class discussion, she asked me to stay behind. "You have a natural talent for understanding market dynamics," Professor Blackwell said, leaning against her desk. "Have you considered a career in finance?" I admitted that I had been contemplating a business major but hadn't narrowed my focus yet. "Well, you should seriously consider finance. With your analytical skills and work ethic, you could be exceptional." She paused, studying me. "I mentor a select few students each year. Would you be interested?" That conversation marked the beginning of a relationship that would profoundly impact my life. Under Professor Blackwell's guidance, I declared a finance major and began to see a clear career path. She recommended specific courses, introduced me to industry professionals, and provided brutally honest feedback on my work that pushed me to excel beyond what I thought possible. "The finance world is still predominantly male," she warned me during one of our monthly meetings. "You will need to work twice as hard to be taken half as seriously. It isn't fair, but it's reality." I laughed without much humor. I have been living in someone else's shadow my entire life. At least in finance, hard work and results can speak for themselves. Professor Blackwell gave me a searching look. Family issues. I shared a brief version of my history with my brother and parents. She listened without interrupting, her expression thoughtful. "Miriam," she said when I finished, "some people spend their lives seeking validation from those incapable of providing it. Don't let that be your story. Channel that drive into building something for yourself." Her words struck a chord that resonated deeply. I threw myself into my studies with renewed purpose, graduating summa cum laude. When several job offers came my way, I accepted a position at a boutique financial firm in Seattle. Not the most prestigious option, but one that offered significant responsibility early in my career. The fact that it was on the opposite coast from my family was a definite factor in my decision. My first years at Westridge Financial were challenging. As Professor Blackwell had predicted, I often found myself the only woman in meetings, my suggestions frequently attributed to male colleagues when repeated. I worked 14-hour days, arrived early, stayed late, and took on projects no one else wanted. Slowly but steadily, my reputation for thorough analysis and innovative investment strategies grew. The distance from my family allowed me to build a life entirely my own. I made genuine connections with colleagues who became friends. Sarah, our marketing director, and Aidan, another financial analyst who started the same week I did, became my chosen family. They celebrated my birthdays with thoughtfulness my parents had never shown, remembered my preferences and dislikes, and supported my career ambitions without competition or jealousy. 6 years into my career at Westridge, I developed an investment strategy focusing on emerging green technology companies that earned the firm millions in commissions. The success caught the attention of senior management, and I was promoted to senior investment strategist with a substantial salary increase and a private office with a view of Puget Sound. Through it all, I maintained obligatory contact with my family. Monthly phone calls home usually followed the same pattern, brief inquiries about my work followed by extended updates about Jackson's latest achievements. He had graduated from college and taken a job at a sports marketing firm that he found through my father's connections. According to my parents, he was rising quickly through the ranks, his natural charisma and networking skills opening doors effortlessly. I dutifully called on holidays and sent appropriate gifts for birthdays and Christmas. I shared news of my promotions only to have conversations quickly redirected to Jackson's latest girlfriend or vacation. When I was featured in a financial magazine's 30 Under 30 list, I emailed the article to my parents. My mother responded 3 days later with a 2-sentence acknowledgement, followed by 5 paragraphs about Jackson being invited to an industry golf tournament. With each interaction, a familiar pattern repeated. I would reach out hoping this time would be different. This time they would show genuine interest in my life. This time they would acknowledge my achievements with more than cursory congratulations. Each time the conversation would inevitably shift to Jackson, leaving me with the hollow feeling I had known since childhood. Sarah noticed my subdued mood after one such phone call. "Let me guess," she said, pouring me a glass of wine in her apartment during our weekly dinner. "Another thrilling update about Golden Boy Jackson." I nodded, trying to smile. "Apparently, he just bought a new condo. Mom spent 20 minutes describing the crown molding and granite countertops." "Did you tell her about your promotion?" Aiden asked, joining us with a plate of appetizers. "I tried. She said, 'That's nice,' and asked if I was dating anyone, then immediately launched into a story about Jackson's new girlfriend, who apparently works for a fashion magazine." Sarah and Aiden exchanged a look I recognized from years of friendship, their concerned but frustrated expression when I discussed my family. "Miriam," Sarah said gently, "at some point you need to accept that they are incapable of giving you the recognition you deserve." "I know." I sighed. "Logically, I understand that. Emotionally is another story." "Your family may never change," Aiden said, "but you can change how much power their approval holds over you." They were right, of course. After years of therapy in college and early in my career, I intellectually understood the dynamics at play. My parents had created a golden child scapegoat dynamic common in dysfunctional families. Jackson was the golden child who could do no wrong, while I was the responsible one expected to succeed without support or acknowledgement. Understanding the pattern didn't make it hurt less. Some childish part of me still hoped that if I achieved enough, succeeded enough, proved my worth thoroughly enough, my parents would finally see me. That hope, however faint, kept me tethered to patterns that brought consistent disappointment. A month before my 32nd birthday, I learned that my investment strategy for green tech companies had paid off beyond even the most optimistic projections. The CEO called me into his office personally to inform me that I would be receiving a bonus of $350,000. "You've earned every penny," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "Your insight has positioned Westridge as a leader in an emerging market. The board has also approved your promotion to Director of Sustainable Investments effective immediately." I left his office in a daze, emotions swirling. Pride in my accomplishment, satisfaction at the recognition, and an immediate instinctive urge to call my parents that was followed by the familiar sinking feeling as I anticipated their response. Still, I called that evening. My mother answered on the 4th ring. "Miriam, hello. Can I call you back?" "We are just about to have dinner with the Hendersons. You remember them. They live down the street, and their son went to school with Jackson." "I actually have some big news," I said quickly before she could hang up. "I received a major promotion today and a significant bonus. I will be leading a new division focused on sustainable investments." "That's wonderful, dear," she said, her tone suggesting she was only half listening. "Oh, did I tell you Jackson just bought a new car? One of those Tesla things everyone is talking about. Very environmentally conscious of him, don't you think?" And there it was. My achievement immediately overshadowed, redirected to praise for Jackson. I ended the call shortly after promising to call again soon, a promise I made mechanically while feeling the familiar ache of invisibility. As my birthday approached, I dropped hints in conversations with both parents. I mentioned taking the day off work. I talked about another year passing. I explicitly said, I am looking forward to turning 32 next Thursday. My father responded with vague acknowledgement. My mother mentioned that Thursday was also the day Jackson would hear about a potential promotion at his firm, and wasn't that exciting? Despite decades of similar experiences, hope flickered stubbornly. Maybe this year would be different. Maybe this time they would remember. My 32nd birthday dawned bright and clear in Seattle, the rare October day when the notorious Pacific Northwest rain took a pause. I had taken the day off work, allowing myself the luxury of sleeping in. No alarm, no rush to the office, just peaceful morning solitude in the apartment I had carefully decorated to reflect my tastes, minimalist with strategic pops of color in artwork and throw pillows. I made myself a special breakfast, a veggie omelet and French press coffee, and even added a small candle to my toast, lighting it and making a private wish before blowing it out. The childish gesture made me smile and cringe simultaneously. 32 years old and still hoping for birthday magic. By 10 o'clock, I had checked my phone multiple times. Nothing from my parents. No text, no missed call, no email. My social media accounts showed birthday wishes from colleagues, college friends, and even Professor Blackwell, who never forgot despite her busy schedule. But nothing from my family. I tried to focus on the pleasant messages I had received rather than the absence that stung most sharply. I responded to each birthday wish with genuine appreciation, setting my phone aside between notifications to read a novel I had been saving for today. By noon, I could no longer pretend the silence wasn't bothering me. I checked our family group chat, scrolling through recent messages to ensure I hadn't somehow missed something important. What I found instead made my stomach clench. Photos of an elaborate party setup at my parents' house, decorations in Jackson's favorite colors, a professional-looking cake with congratulations written in elegant script. My mother's message: everything is ready for tonight's celebration. Can't wait to celebrate our son's big achievement. Tonight, my birthday, they were throwing a party for Jackson on my birthday. With shaking fingers, I typed a casual message. Looks great. What's the celebration for? My mother responded almost immediately. Jackson got the promotion, Senior Director of Client Relations. We're having a small gathering to celebrate, just family and a few close friends. No acknowledgement of the date's significance to me. No invitation to join even remotely. No wish you could be here or sorry it's on your birthday. Nothing. I set my phone down and went to the kitchen for a glass of water, trying to calm the emotions threatening to overwhelm me. Intellectually, I had known this might happen. Emotionally, the confirmation still felt like a physical blow. As I sipped my water, my phone pinged with a notification. For one hopeful moment, I thought perhaps someone had realized the oversight. Instead, it was an Instagram alert. I opened the app to find my mother had posted photos of the party preparations with the caption, "Celebrating our pride and joy tonight. So proud of all you've accomplished." Jackson. I scrolled through the images, the elaborate decorations, the custom banner, the gourmet catering setup. The comments section overflowed with congratulations from family, friends, and relatives, many of whom had known me my entire life. Not one mentioned that today was also my birthday. The final photo showed my parents standing beside Jackson, all three beaming at the camera. My father's arm was around my brother's shoulders, my mother clutching his hand as though he had just won an Olympic medal rather than receiving a standard career advancement. I closed the app and pressed the heels of my hands against my eyes, willing back tears that threatened to spill. 32 years old was too old to cry over a forgotten birthday, I told myself sternly. I had a successful career, financial independence, good friends. I didn't need birthday acknowledgement from people who had consistently shown me I was an afterthought. Yet the hurt child within me disagreed vehemently. In a moment of masochistic impulse, I decided to call home. Perhaps hearing their voices would provide some closure, some final confirmation that I needed to stop expecting what they were incapable of giving. My mother answered on the second ring, household noise evident in the background. "Miriam, is everything okay?" As though I would only call if something were wrong, as though my birthday couldn't possibly be reason enough. "Everything's fine," I said, working to keep my voice steady. "I just saw the posts about Jackson's party. Congratulations to him on the promotion." "Oh, yes, we are so proud. Hold on, let me put you on speaker so everyone can hear you." The background noise increased as my mother apparently set her phone down in the midst of the gathering. "Miriam's on the phone," she announced to the room. "She's calling to congratulate Jackson." Various voices called out greetings, most so garbled in the ambient noise that I couldn't identify who was speaking. "Thanks for calling, sis." Jackson's voice came through more clearly. "Wish you could be here." Did he realize what day it was? Had he forgotten too, or was he simply going along with our parents' focus? "Well, I just wanted to say congratulations," I said, nearly slipping into mentioning my own birthday before catching myself. Why bother? It would only create awkwardness that would somehow become my fault for mentioning it. "Thanks. Got to go greet some people, but talk soon, okay?" And with that, he was gone from the conversation. My mother returned to the phone. "We're quite busy right now with guests, Miriam. Can we call you tomorrow?" "Sure," I said, knowing they wouldn't. Enjoy the celebration. The call ended, and I sat in the silence of my apartment, the book abandoned on the coffee table, my special day stretching emptily before me. I had planned to treat myself to dinner at my favorite restaurant later, but suddenly the thought of sitting alone at a table for one on my birthday seemed unbearably pathetic. I called Sarah. "They're throwing him a party," I said when she answered, not bothering with preliminaries. "A full-blown celebration with catering and decorations on my birthday, which no one mentioned or remembered." Sarah's outrage on my behalf was immediate and validating. "Are you freaking kidding me? That's beyond inconsiderate. It's cruel." "Maybe they genuinely forgot," I said, playing devil's advocate even as I knew better. "Miriam, stop making excuses for them. This isn't a one-time oversight. It's a pattern of behavior that's gone on your entire life." She was right, of course. This wasn't about a single forgotten birthday. It was about a lifetime of being overlooked, minimized, and taken for granted while my brother received effusive praise and celebration for basic accomplishments. "Come over," Sarah insisted. "Aiden and I will order in, we'll watch terrible movies, and we'll properly celebrate you." I accepted gratefully, needing the comfort of people who genuinely cared about me. The evening with Sarah and Aiden helped soothe the raw edges of my hurt. They had gotten me thoughtful gifts, Sarah a beautiful cashmere scarf in my favorite shade of blue, Aiden a first edition of my favorite childhood novel. We ate takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant, drank good wine, and watched comedies that made me laugh despite my melancholy. When I returned to my apartment just after midnight, technically no longer my birthday, I crawled into bed and finally allowed myself to cry. Not just for today's disappointment, but for decades of similar moments. For the little girl who had learned early that her achievements, her milestones, her very existence was secondary. For the woman who still, despite all evidence to the contrary, hoped for recognition from people constitutionally incapable of providing it. I cried until my pillow was damp and my eyes burned. And then, emotionally exhausted, I fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. When I woke the next morning, something had shifted within me. The hurt remained, but alongside it grew a new determination. I was done seeking approval and acknowledgement from people who had demonstrated repeatedly they couldn't or wouldn't provide it. I was done making myself small to accommodate their narrative that Jackson was the only one worthy of celebration. I had spent my life trying to earn love that should have been freely given. No more. As I made my morning coffee, I thought about the substantial bonus sitting in my bank account, money I had earned through my own hard work and insight, money that represented recognition of my value from people who actually saw me. What would it look like, I wondered, to give myself the acknowledgement my family never would? The morning after my forgotten birthday, I sat at my kitchen counter sipping coffee and staring at my banking app. The bonus had been deposited 2 days earlier. $350,000 that represented years of hard work, insight, and professional growth. Money I had earned entirely on my own merit, without family connections or support. For a moment, I considered the conventional financial wisdom I had followed throughout my adult life. Investing the bonus would be the responsible choice. Adding to my retirement accounts, diversifying my portfolio, perhaps making some strategic high-risk investments with a portion. The safe, logical approach my financial training advocated. But something rebellious stirred within me. Something that whispered, what if just once you did something purely for yourself? Something that brings you joy rather than just security. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. I had built my entire adult identity around being responsible, practical, dependable, the antithesis of my brother's more impulsive, pleasure-seeking approach to life. What would it mean to step outside those self-imposed boundaries? I opened my laptop and began researching financial advisors who specialized in real estate investments. By noon, I had scheduled a meeting with Elaine Torres, a well-respected advisor whose reviews praised her straightforward approach and willingness to think beyond conventional investment strategies. Elaine's office overlooked Lake Union, the autumn sunlight dancing across the water visible through her floor-to-ceiling windows. She greeted me with a firm handshake and direct eye contact that immediately put me at ease. "So, Miriam," she said after we had exchanged pleasantries, "tell me about your financial goals and what brings you to my office today." I explained my recent bonus and promotion, my solid financial foundation, and my tentative idea about investing in property. "I have always been extremely careful with money," I admitted. "But lately, I have been thinking about creating something for myself that isn't just about future security, something that brings immediate joy while still being a sound investment." Elaine nodded thoughtfully. "Balance is important in financial planning. Security matters, but so does quality of life in the present." She pulled up some figures on her tablet. "Based on what you have shared about your current financial situation, you are actually in an excellent position to consider real estate. What type of property interests you?" I hesitated, then decided to share the vague idea that had been forming since my birthday disappointment. I grew up in Connecticut, but my family used to vacation in the Adirondacks when I was very young before my brother was born. I have these fragmented memories of a small cabin near a lake of swimming in clear water and catching fireflies at dusk. Those are some of the happiest memories of my childhood. The words surprised me as they emerged. I hadn't consciously connected my property interests to those early memories until this moment. "A lake house," Elaine said, making a note. "For weekend getaways, or are you thinking of a more permanent relocation?" "Definitely a retreat, at least initially. I love my job in the city, but having a peaceful place to decompress would be wonderful." Elaine began typing on her computer. "There are several lake areas within a few hours of Seattle that might suit your needs. What's your approximate budget?" I was thinking of using most of the bonus as a down payment, something in the 400 to 500,000 range perhaps. For the next hour, we explored options, discussed mortgage rates, and calculated monthly payments based on different scenarios. By the end of our meeting, I had a clear understanding of what I could realistically afford and a short list of lakeside areas to explore. "I will email you some specific listings that meet your criteria," Elaine said as we wrapped up. "These properties tend to move quickly, so I recommend viewing any that interest you as soon as possible." 3 days later, I found myself driving into the Cascade foothills, following directions to a property on Lake Sumish. The autumn colors were at their peak, transforming the winding drive into a corridor of gold and crimson. As I rounded the final bend in the road, the lake appeared before me, its surface reflecting the surrounding mountains in vivid foliage. The real estate agent, Dana, waited in the driveway of a cedar-sided cabin nestled among towering pines. The property looked exactly like the listing photos, modest but well-maintained, with a wraparound deck and a private dock extending into the clear lake water. "It's even more beautiful in person," I said as I stepped from my car. Dana smiled. "Wait until you see the interior. The previous owners recently renovated, so everything inside is updated while maintaining the classic cabin feel." She was right. The main living area featured a stone fireplace, exposed beam ceilings, and large windows that framed the lake view perfectly. The kitchen was small but functional, with new appliances and quartz countertops. 2 bedrooms each with its own updated bathroom completed the main floor, while a loft space overlooked the living room, creating a cozy reading nook. But it was the back deck and path to the private dock that truly captured my heart. Standing on the weathered wooden planks extending over the water, I felt a profound sense of peace settle over me. The gentle lapping of waves against the shore, the rustling of wind through pine needles, the distant call of a loon, all combined to create a symphony of tranquility I hadn't experienced in years. "The dock is deep enough for a small boat," Dana was saying, "and the lake is known for excellent fishing and swimming. The water quality here is exceptional." I nodded, barely registering her words. Something about this place spoke to me on a level beyond practical considerations. I could envision myself here, morning coffee, on the deck evenings by the fireplace, weekends swimming in the lake or hiking the nearby trails. A sanctuary that was entirely mine, chosen by me for me. "How long has it been on the market?" I asked, finally turning away from the hypnotic view. "Just under 2 weeks. We have had considerable interest, but no offers yet. The owners are motivated to sell before winter." I took one more look across the sparkling water, then made a decision that felt simultaneously terrifying and absolutely right. I would like to make an offer. The negotiation process moved quickly. My initial offer came in slightly below asking price. The sellers countered, and we settled on a figure in the middle. The inspection revealed only minor issues that the sellers agreed to address before closing. With Elaine's guidance, I secured a mortgage with favorable terms, using the majority of my bonus for the down payment and closing costs. Throughout the process, doubts periodically surfaced. Was I being impulsive? Was this a reaction to my family's neglect rather than a sound decision? Should I be investing this money more conventionally? Each time these questions arose, I reminded myself that this purchase aligned with both my emotional and financial needs. The property represented not just a retreat, but an investment in an area with consistently increasing real estate values. The mortgage payments were well within my means, especially with my recent promotion. This was not an either-or situation. I could maintain my other investments and retirement planning while still giving myself this gift. The day I signed the final papers transferring ownership of the lake house to my name, I experienced a profound mixture of terror and elation. The responsibility of property ownership was significant, but so was the freedom of having created this sanctuary through my own efforts and decisions. Sarah and Aiden insisted on helping me move in the essentials and set up the space. We spent a weekend painting the master bedroom, hanging artwork, arranging furniture I had carefully selected to create the cozy, peaceful atmosphere I envisioned. They brought housewarming gifts, a set of luxurious bed linens from Sarah, a comprehensive toolkit from Aiden, and we christened the fire pit on the shore with s'mores and wine as the sun set over the lake. "To Miriam," Sarah said, raising her glass in a toast, "for creating her own happiness instead of waiting for others to provide it." "For turning pain into something beautiful," Aiden added. Their words touched me deeply, acknowledging the complex emotions behind my purchase without reducing it to a reaction to my family's neglect. This place was about so much more than that. It represented a declaration of self-worth, a physical manifestation of the principle that I deserved beautiful things, peaceful spaces, and personal joy, regardless of whether my family recognized my value. The first night I spent alone at the lake house was magical. After Sarah and Aiden departed Sunday evening, I sat on the dock as dusk fell, watching the water turn from blue to silver to obsidian as stars began appearing in the darkening sky. The silence was profound, interrupted only by natural sounds, loons calling across the water, fish occasionally breaking the surface, wind sighing through the pines. For perhaps the first time in my adult life, I felt completely at peace. Not striving, not seeking approval, not comparing myself to anyone. Just existing in a moment and space entirely my own. I took a photo of the twilight view from my dock, capturing the last traces of golden light on the water, the silhouettes of mountains against the deepening blue sky. The image perfectly conveyed the tranquility I felt in that moment. On impulse, I opened Instagram and created a new post. I selected several photos: the exterior of the cabin, framed by autumn foliage, the cozy living room with a fire in the hearth, the view from the master bedroom window, and finally the twilight lake scene from the dock. For the caption, I kept it simple. Birthday gift to myself. I posted it without overthinking, then set my phone aside and returned to contemplating the emerging stars. Whatever responses came would not define the value of what I had created for myself here. This space existed for my joy alone, not for external validation or approval. When I checked my phone the next morning, I was overwhelmed by the positive responses. Colleagues, friends from college, even Professor Blackwell had commented with congratulations and admiration. Several friends asked when they could visit, others requested more photos of the interior. The genuine happiness for me expressed in these messages formed a striking contrast to my family's silence around my actual birthday. Then, just as I was preparing to drive back to Seattle for the work week, my phone rang. My mother's name appeared on the screen. I stared at my mother's name on the phone screen, momentarily frozen between the instinct to answer immediately, a lifetime habit, and the new, fragile boundaries I was attempting to establish. Taking a deep breath, I accepted the call. "Hello, Mom," I said, striving for a neutral tone. "Miriam." Her voice had that particular crisp edge I recognized from childhood, the tone that indicated displeasure tightly controlled beneath a veneer of civility. "Would you care to explain what I am looking at on my social media feed this morning?" No greeting, no inquiry about my well-being. Straight to demanding explanations as though I were 15 and had missed curfew. "I assume you are referring to my post about the lake house," I replied, maintaining the calm I had cultivated during my peaceful weekend. "A lake house. You bought a lake house without discussing this with anyone in your family." Each question rose slightly in pitch, her incredulity apparent. "Yes, I did. I used my bonus from work to make the down payment. It is on Lake Samish, about an hour and a half from Seattle." "But Miriam, this seems incredibly impulsive. Real estate is a serious commitment. Did you even consult with your father?" "He has significant experience with property investments." The irony of her concern about consultation struck me forcefully. "No, I didn't consult Dad. I worked with a financial advisor and real estate professional. The purchase is well within my means and the property has excellent potential for appreciation. Still, something this significant, I just don't understand why you wouldn't discuss it with us first." I closed my eyes briefly, gathering my thoughts. "Mom, when was the last time we had a meaningful discussion about my life or decisions? When was the last time you or Dad showed genuine interest in my career or personal choices?" The silence that followed was telling. I could almost see her expression, the mixture of offense and confusion that appeared whenever I challenged the family dynamic. "That's not fair, Miriam. We always support you." "Do you? In what ways specifically?" Another pause. "Well, we are your parents. Of course we support you. We raised you to be independent and responsible, and clearly that worked given your career success. Independence forced upon someone because they can't rely on support is not the same as independence fostered through guidance and encouragement. I said, surprising myself with the insight. An acknowledgement after the fact is not the same as active support during the process. My mother sighed heavily into the phone. I don't understand why you are being so difficult about this. Your father and I are simply concerned about such a major purchase made apparently on impulse. It wasn't impulsive. It was carefully considered. But even if it were impulsive, it would be my choice to make with my money that I earned through my own hard work. Well, your father wants to talk to you. He is very concerned about this financial decision. Before I could respond, my father's voice replaced my mother's. Miriam, what on earth were you thinking recreational property is a money pit? Maintenance, property taxes, insurance, the carrying costs alone could significantly impact your financial stability. The fact that his first concern was financial rather than wondering if I was happy with my purchase spoke volumes. Dad, I appreciate the concern, but I have factored all those costs into my financial planning. This was not a spontaneous decision. The property is well maintained, recently updated, and in an area with consistent appreciation. It meets both my personal needs for a retreat space and my financial criteria for a sound investment. But why now? Why not wait a few more years until you have more established savings? The question sparked something in me. A realization that no timeline would ever be right for them, no achievement ever quite enough to warrant celebration or indulgence. Dad, I just received a major promotion and a substantial bonus. I have a strong investment portfolio, minimal debt outside of my primary mortgage, and an excellent credit score. Financially speaking, this was an ideal time to make this purchase. Still, he persisted, property ties up capital that could be working harder for you in other investments. Perhaps, I conceded, but financial decisions aren't made in a vacuum. There's value in quality of life and creating spaces for joy and peace. This property provides that for me. He made a dismissive sound. That sounds like something your brother would say to justify an extravagant purchase. The comparison stung as it was meant to. Throughout our childhood and into adulthood, Jackson's occasionally impulsive spending had been treated with fond exasperation, while I was expected to be perpetually practical and restrained. Actually, I said, keeping my voice level, it sounds like something a financially stable adult would say when making a balanced decision about allocating resources between future security and present well-being. My father didn't immediately respond, seemingly taken aback by my firm stance. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted slightly. Your brother saw your post too. He is quite impressed and already asking when he can visit. He mentioned something about summer weekends and bringing friends. Of course he was. Jackson had always operated with the assumption that anything in the family was communal property, with particular emphasis on anything of mine. The lake house is my personal retreat, Dad. I will be selective about guests and timing. Meaning what exactly? Your own brother isn't welcome. Meaning I will decide when and if I want visitors, just as you and Mom decide who enters your home and when. Another pause. This conversation has taken a strange turn, Miriam. We are simply expressing normal parental concern about a major financial decision, and you are becoming defensive. I am not being defensive. I am establishing boundaries around my property and my decisions. Boundaries. He practically sputtered the word. We are your family, not some strangers you need protection from. The conversation clearly wasn't productive. I checked the time, noting I needed to leave soon to return to Seattle for work the next day. Dad, I need to go. I have a drive ahead of me to get back to the city. Please know that I appreciate your concern, but I am confident in my decision. This isn't finished, Miriam. Your mother and I would like to see this property before you make any additional decisions about it. The presumption that they had any say in my choices regarding my own property purchased with my own money was so typical that I almost laughed. You are welcome to visit sometime, but the purchase is complete. The property is mine, and decisions about it are also mine. I ended the call shortly after feeling emotionally drained, but strangely empowered. Standing up to my parents, clearly stating my boundaries, and refusing to apologize for choices that served my well-being felt simultaneously terrifying and liberating. Throughout the next week, my phone buzzed regularly with messages from family members. My mother texted daily, alternating between expressions of concern about my hasty decision and guilt-inducing comments about how hurt they were by my secretive behavior. My father sent links to articles about property market fluctuations and maintenance costs for vacation homes, each accompanied by some variation of, "Have you considered this?" as though I hadn't thoroughly researched my purchase. Extended family members who rarely communicated with me directly suddenly found reasons to reach out. My mother's sister wanted to know if the lake house had enough room for a family reunion. My father's cousin, a hobby fisherman, inquired about bringing his boat to test the waters. A second cousin I hadn't spoken to in 5 years asked if her college-age daughter could use the property for a weekend getaway with friends. The most interesting response came from Jackson. Unlike my parents, he didn't call but sent a text that managed to be simultaneously congratulatory and self-serving. "Sweet purchase, sis looks amazing. Dad says it's on a prime fishing lake. We should definitely plan a weekend for me to check it out. Maybe Memorial Day I could bring some work friends. Let me know." No acknowledgement that he had completely forgotten my birthday. No recognition that the property represented a significant achievement for me. Just immediate plans to utilize my space for his enjoyment and social capital. I didn't respond immediately to any of these messages, taking time to process my feelings and determine appropriate boundaries. With distance from the initial conversations, I realized that my family's reactions revealed more about them than about my decision. Their inability to simply congratulate me without criticism, questioning, or attempting to insert themselves into my achievement highlighted exactly why I had needed to create this separate space for myself. 2 weeks after my purchase, my parents announced they were driving up from Portland, where they had been visiting friends, to see my impulsive investment firsthand. I agreed to meet them at the lake house, setting clear time boundaries. I would show them the property, but I had plans in the evening that couldn't be changed. In reality, those plans were simply protecting my time and energy, but they didn't need to know that. The autumn day they arrived was overcast, the lake a steely gray beneath low clouds. Not the postcard-perfect setting I had hoped would impress them despite myself. I still wanted their approval, even as I told myself it didn't matter. My mother exited the car first, surveying the exterior with a critical eye. "It's smaller than it looked in the photos," she said by way of greeting. "It's perfect for one person with occasional guests," I replied, refusing to be defensive. "Just under 1,600 square feet plus the deck and dock areas." My father emerged more slowly, looking around at the neighboring properties. "Seems a bit close to the next house. Is there much privacy?" "The trees provide good screening, and the neighbors are mostly weekend visitors like me," I explained. "Would you like to see inside?" The tour proceeded with a similar pattern. Every feature I pointed out with pride was met with subtle criticism or concern. The stone fireplace was a maintenance issue. The updated kitchen was adequate but limited for entertaining. The master bedroom view was nice, but they worried about light pollution from boats on the lake. It was as though they were physically incapable of simply saying, "This is lovely. We are happy for you." When we reached the dock, my personal favorite spot on the property, my mother surprised me by saying, "This reminds me of that place we used to rent in the Adirondacks when you were small. Do you remember that?" The unexpected connection to my inspiration for the purchase momentarily softened me. "I do remember. Those vacations were some of my happiest childhood memories." "We stopped going after Jackson was born," she mused. He had those terrible allergies, and the doctor thought the lake environment might exacerbate them. I hadn't known that was the reason we had discontinued those vacations. In my child's mind, I had simply assumed another family tradition had been sacrificed for Jackson's preferences or needs, as so many things were. It was a shame, my father added unexpectedly. Those were good trips, but you can't take chances with a child's health. The moment of potential connection passed quickly as they resumed finding flaws in my property. By the time we returned to the cabin, my patience was wearing thin. When my mother began suggesting changes to the interior decor I had carefully selected, something inside me finally snapped. "Mom, Dad," I said, interrupting a detailed critique of my furniture placement, "I need to say something." They looked at me with matching expressions of surprise. I rarely interrupted or contradicted them. "I bought this property for myself with money I earned through my own hard work. I love it exactly as it is. I didn't ask for your approval or advice on the purchase or the decor or anything else related to it." My mother's eyes widened. "We're only trying to help Miriam." "Are you? Or are you trying to diminish something that brings me joy because you can't stand the thought that I made a major life decision without consulting you, decisions you never would have supported anyway?" "That's unfair," my father protested. "We have always supported your independence." "No, you've expected my independence. There's a difference. You expected me to handle college finances alone while fully supporting Jackson. You expected me to build a career without connections or guidance. You expected me to manage my life without the emotional support you lavished on my brother." The words poured out decades of hurt and resentment, finding voice. "Do you even realize you threw a party for Jackson on my birthday? That neither of you called, texted, or acknowledged it in any way? That you have forgotten or minimized my birthday for most of my life while creating elaborate celebrations for him?" My mother's expression shifted to discomfort. "That's not, we didn't intentionally schedule Jackson's promotion party on your birthday. It just worked best for everyone's schedules." "Everyone except me," I said quietly. "But that's always been the case, hasn't it? My feelings, my achievements, my milestones have always been secondary." "Now you're just being dramatic," my father said dismissively. "We raised you both equally. We're equally proud of both our children." "Are you? When was the last time you threw a party for one of my promotions? When was the last time you called just to ask about my day? When was the last time you remembered something important to me without being reminded repeatedly?" Their silence was answer enough. "This lake house," I continued gesturing around us, "is a gift I gave myself because I finally accepted that I deserve celebration and recognition even if it doesn't come from you. It's a declaration that my achievements matter, that my happiness matters, that I matter whether or not anyone else acknowledges it." My mother's eyes had filled with tears, though whether from genuine remorse or from being confronted, I couldn't tell. My father looked uncomfortable, his usual confidence faltering. "If you want to be part of my life in a meaningful way going forward," I said, "things need to change. I won't keep accepting scraps of attention while watching Jackson receive the feast. I won't keep pretending it doesn't hurt when my birthday is forgotten year after year. I won't keep diminishing my achievements because acknowledging them might make someone else feel less special." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I love this place because it's completely mine. No one else's opinions or needs or preferences matter here. For once in my life, I am the priority in this space, and I won't apologize for that." My parents exchanged glances, a silent communication I couldn't interpret. After a moment, my father cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should go. You mentioned you had plans this evening." No acknowledgement of anything I had said. No recognition of the pain they had caused. No apology or commitment to change. Just a retreat when confronted with uncomfortable truths. I nodded, suddenly exhausted. That might be best. They gathered their things in silence. At the door, my mother paused. "The place is very nice, Miriam. It suits you." She delivered the words stiffly, as though the admission cost her something. It wasn't the recognition I had hoped for, but it was something perhaps the most positive comment she had made about a choice of mine in years. I accepted it with a nod. As their car disappeared down the winding driveway, I returned to my dock, sitting at the edge with my feet dangling above the dark water. The confrontation had left me drained, but also strangely light, as though a weight I had carried so long I had forgotten it was there had finally been set down. I didn't know if anything would change with my family. Patterns established over decades don't dissolve in a single conversation, no matter how honest. But something had changed within me. I had spoken my truth without minimizing it to protect their feelings. I had claimed my space and my right to joy without apology. As I watched the clouds begin to break, allowing patches of late afternoon sunlight to dapple the lake's surface, I felt a profound sense of having crossed some threshold in my relationship with myself. For the first time, I had truly stood up for my own worth, not through achievement or productivity, but simply by declaring my inherent right to recognition and celebration. The lake house stood behind me, solid and real, a physical manifestation of that declaration. Whatever came next with my family, this sanctuary was mine, a gift from me to myself that no one could diminish or take away. In the weeks following the confrontation with my parents, I found myself embarking on an unexpected journey of personal transformation. The raw honesty of that conversation had cracked open something within me, exposing long-buried feelings and patterns that needed examination. After careful consideration, I scheduled an appointment with Dr. Lydia Chen, a therapist specializing in family dynamics and adult children of emotionally unavailable parents. Our first session began with my recounting of the lake house purchase and subsequent family reaction. Dr. Chen listened attentively, occasionally asking clarifying questions, but mostly allowing me to tell my story uninterrupted. "What you're describing, Ga," she said when I finished, "contains many elements of emotional neglect, not necessarily intentional cruelty, but a persistent pattern of overlooking your emotional needs while prioritizing your brother's." "But my parents would say they provided everything I needed," I countered. "We were financially comfortable. I never lacked for material necessities." Dr. Chen nodded. "Material provision is important, but it's only one dimension of parenting. Emotional attunement, the acknowledgement and validation of a child's feelings, experiences, and identity, is equally crucial for healthy development." Over subsequent sessions, we explored how this emotional neglect had shaped my personality and choices. My drive for achievement, my reluctance to ask for help, my tendency to minimize my own needs, all stemmed from early lessons that my value was tied to my utility and independence rather than my inherent worth as a person. Children who experience emotional neglect often become adults who struggle to recognize and honor their own feelings, Dr. Chen explained. They become hyper-independent, believing that relying on others is both risky and shameful. The pattern she described fit me with uncomfortable precision. Throughout my life, I had prided myself on needing no one, on handling everything alone, on never burdening others with my problems. What I had framed as strength now revealed itself partially as a trauma response, a child's adaptation to an environment where emotional needs went unmet. "So, what now?" I asked during our fourth session. "I can't change my childhood or my parents." "No," Dr. Chen agreed, "but you can change your relationship to that history and your expectations moving forward. Setting boundaries as you did at the lake house is an excellent start. Now we need to work on internalizing the truth that you deserve recognition and care regardless of your achievements or utility to others." That work proved challenging. Decades of conditioning don't dissolve easily, even with awareness. I found myself slipping into familiar patterns, seeking validation through work achievements, minimizing my emotional needs, making myself available to family members who rarely reciprocated. Dr. Chen suggested practical exercises to counter these tendencies. I began keeping a feelings journal recording emotional responses I would typically ignore or suppress. I practiced small acts of self-care not as rewards for productivity, but as acknowledgments of inherent worth. I rehearsed phrases for maintaining boundaries in conversations with family members. Parallel to this therapeutic work, I established a new relationship with my lake house sanctuary. Every other weekend, I made the drive from Seattle, gradually turning the property into a true reflection of myself. I painted the second bedroom a rich teal, my favorite color that my mother had always dismissed as too intense. I hung artwork that spoke to me without considering anyone else's taste or opinion. I created spaces for all the activities that brought me joy: reading, kayaking, bird watching, simply sitting in silence. The first holiday season after the lake house purchase presented a significant challenge. Traditionally, I had always returned to Connecticut for Christmas, fitting myself back into familiar family dynamics despite the discomfort. This year, I made a different choice. I will be spending Christmas at my lake house, I informed my mother during our monthly phone call in early December. I have invited some friends to join me for a small celebration. The silence that followed conveyed her disapproval more eloquently than words. "It's our tradition to have the family together at Christmas," she finally said. "Your brother is coming. He's bringing his new girlfriend. Everyone will be disappointed if you're not there." In the past, this combination of tradition, invoking, and guilt would have swayed me. This time I held firm. "I understand this is different from our usual arrangement, but this is what works best for me this year. Perhaps we can video call on Christmas Day." More silence than a sigh. "I suppose you need to do what makes you happy, Miriam." The passive-aggressive acquiescence was familiar, but my response to it was new. Instead of feeling guilty or defensive, I simply accepted the statement at face value. "Yes, that's exactly right. Thank you for understanding." Christmas at the lake house with Sarah Aiden and a few other close friends became one of the most joyful holiday celebrations of my adult life. We cooked together, exchanged thoughtful gifts, played board games by the fireplace, and took a bracing Christmas morning swim in the lake that left us shrieking and laughing. No one's preferences or needs dominated, no comparison or competition underscored our interactions. We simply enjoyed each other's company in a space where everyone felt welcome and valued. The most unexpected development during this period came from my brother. A few days after New Year's, I received a text message asking if we could talk. Curious and slightly wary, I agreed to a phone call. I've been thinking," Jackson began awkwardly after initial greetings, "about what happened with your birthday this year." I stayed silent, allowing him space to continue. "Mom mentioned you were upset that we had my promotion party on your birthday, and I realize that's happened before, hasn't it?" "Like a lot." "Yes," I said simply. "It has." "I guess I never really thought about it," he said, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. "Or maybe I did, but it was easier not to rock the boat, you know. When things work in your favor, you don't question them." The admission surprised me with its self-awareness. My brother had always seemed oblivious to the disparity in our treatment content to accept the adoration and advantages our parents provided. "Anyway," he continued, "I'm sorry for not noticing, for not saying something, for taking the spotlight all the time." The apology, imperfect, but seemingly genuine, momentarily left me speechless. "Thank you for saying that," I finally managed. "It means a lot to hear you acknowledge it." "Yeah, well," he cleared his throat, "I've been doing some thinking since you bought that lake house, about how you've always had to make your own way while I got everything handed to me. It's not really fair, is it?" "No," I agreed. "It wasn't fair. For what it's worth, I'm really impressed with what you've accomplished. On your own, I mean. The career, the lake house, that's all you. And it's pretty amazing." His words touched a place inside me that had long craved recognition from my family. Not stilted, obligatory acknowledgement, but genuine appreciation. This felt like the latter. Thanks, Jackson. That means more than you probably realize. So, I was wondering, he said, hesitation evident in his voice, if maybe we could try to have a better relationship, like as adults without all the family dynamics messing things up. I don't know my big sister very well, and that's on me as much as it's on Mom and Dad. The offer of a reset of building an authentic sibling relationship outside the shadow of our parents' favoritism was unexpected, but welcome. I'd like that, I said cautiously. It might take some time to find our footing. Yeah, of course. Maybe I could visit that lake house sometime. Not with friends, he added quickly. Not like I suggested before. Just me, to hang out and catch up, properly. We made tentative plans for him to visit in the spring when the lake would be warm enough for swimming and outdoor activities. As we ended the call, I felt cautiously optimistic about the possibility of a more balanced relationship with my brother, a relationship based on mutual respect and genuine interest rather than competition and resentment. My parents proved more resistant to change. Despite the confrontation at the lake house and my ongoing boundary setting, they continued many of their established patterns. My father still offered unsolicited financial advice while showing minimal interest in my personal well-being. My mother still redirected conversations to Jackson within minutes of asking about my life. But small shifts emerged. My mother added my birthday to her digital calendar with a yearly reminder. My father occasionally asked questions about my work that suggested actual curiosity rather than perfunctory interest. They respected my decision to spend holidays at the lake house rather than returning to Connecticut, even if they expressed disappointment. These changes weren't dramatic transformations, and they often faltered. Old patterns reasserted themselves regularly, requiring consistent reinforcement of boundaries. But the very act of maintaining those boundaries, of requiring respect for my time and feelings, shifted something fundamental in our dynamic. I was no longer the compliant daughter accepting whatever scraps of attention they offered. I was an adult with agency, making conscious choices about the relationships I maintained and the terms of those relationships. As winter gave way to spring, I found my professional life flourishing alongside these personal developments. The sustainable investment division I directed gained attention throughout the industry as our carefully chosen companies consistently outperformed market expectations. I was invited to speak at conferences, contribute to financial publications, and consult with firms looking to incorporate similar strategies. What surprised me most about this professional recognition was how differently it felt now. In the past, external validation had been a substitute for the familial acknowledgement I craved. Now, with my self-worth increasingly generated from within, professional success felt like a pleasant affirmation rather than a desperate necessity. I began mentoring younger professionals, particularly women entering the male-dominated world of finance. Sharing my knowledge and experience with these emerging talents brought unexpected fulfillment, creating a virtuous cycle where helping others reinforced my own sense of value and purpose. Sarah noticed the change in me during one of our regular dinner gatherings. "You seem different," she observed, as we shared a bottle of wine at her apartment. "More grounded somehow, like you're finally comfortable in your own skin." "That's exactly how it feels," I admitted. "Like I've finally stopped trying to earn the right to exist and just accepted that I already have it." The wisdom I found through therapy, self-reflection, and the creation of my sanctuary extended beyond my family relationships. I became more discerning about friendships and dating, gravitating toward people who demonstrated genuine interest and reciprocity. I learned to express needs directly rather than hoping others would intuitively understand and meet them. I practiced receiving care and support without immediately feeling obligated to repay it. None of these changes came easily or linearly. There were setbacks and regressions, moments of falling into old patterns or doubting my new boundaries. The work of restructuring a lifetime of conditioning was ongoing, sometimes exhausting. But with each small victory, each moment of standing firm in my worth, the new patterns strengthened. As my birthday approached again, I decided to create a new tradition. I invited my closest friends to the lake house for a weekend celebration, a deliberate reclaiming of a date that had brought so much disappointment in the past. The gathering would be exactly what I wanted, neither elaborate nor modest, focused on connection and joy rather than impressive displays or material excess. When my mother called the week before to ask about my plans, I shared them openly. "That sounds lovely," she said, and then hesitated before adding, "Your father and I were wondering if we might send a gift. Would that be welcome?" The question, with its unusual deference to my preferences, indicated a subtle but significant shift in our dynamic. "Yes," I said. "That would be nice. Thank you." On the morning of my 33rd birthday, I woke in my lake house with sunlight streaming through the windows. The previous evening, my friends had arrived bearing gifts, favorite foods, and genuine excitement to celebrate me. The day ahead promised hiking, swimming, and a sunset dinner on the deck. As I sipped my morning coffee on the dock, I reflected on the profound changes of the past year. From the forgotten birthday that had catalyzed my lake house purchase to this moment of peaceful self-acceptance, the journey had been challenging, but transformative. My phone chimed with a text message from my mother. "Happy birthday, Miriam. Your father and I are thinking of you today and hope you have a wonderful celebration with your friends. The gift we sent should arrive by noon." Simple acknowledgement. No comparison to Jackson, no diminishment, no redirected attention. Just recognition of my day and my plans. Later that afternoon, a delivery arrived, a carefully selected collection of native plants specifically suited to the lake house property, along with a card signed by both parents, expressing hope that these additions would bring beauty to a place that clearly brought me joy. The gift wasn't perfect. It still contained traces of their desire to influence my choices, to improve upon my decisions. But it also demonstrated thought and effort, a genuine attempt to connect with my life as it actually was, rather than as they wished it to be. As I stood on my dock that evening, watching the sunset paint the lake in brilliant oranges and pinks, surrounded by friends who genuinely celebrated my existence, I felt a profound sense of peace. The journey of learning my own worth, independent of external validation, was far from complete. The patterns of a lifetime don't disappear in a single year of growth, but the foundation had been laid, a solid platform of self-respect and clear boundaries from which to continue building. The lake house around me stood as a physical reminder of this transformation. What had begun as a reaction to familial neglect had evolved into a powerful symbol of self-regard. In buying myself this gift and creating this sanctuary, I had declared my inherent worthiness of beauty, peace, and celebration, whether or not anyone else recognized it. As darkness fell and stars began appearing in the clear night sky, I made a silent promise to myself to continue honoring my own worth, to maintain the boundaries that protected it, and to extend the compassion I was learning to give myself toward others still struggling to recognize their value. The water lapped gently against the dock beneath me, a steady rhythm like the beating of a heart. My heart, my life, my choices, for perhaps the first time fully and completely mine. Have you ever had to create your own celebration when others forgot an important day? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. This journey taught me that sometimes the greatest gift is the one you give yourself, recognition of your own worth. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories of self-discovery. Thank you for listening, and remember, you deserve to be celebrated, even if you have to be the one to throw the party.